Penny was determined and organised from an early age. She grew up in a poor family. Her mother was a primary school teacher, and her father worked as an operator at the local thermal power plant. Though they had enough for essentials, luxuries were unreachable. Penny loved her parents dearly, yet as she grew older, she developed mixed feelings about their lifestyle. She saw how they missed opportunities and seemed resistant to growth, mechanically going to their modest jobs, complaining about the government and accepting their lot in life. At times she felt pity for them, but Penny knew one thing with certainty: she would forge a different path. After completing high school, she enrolled in the economics department at the local university. By her 4th year, she had opened her own children's dance school, winning a city startup competition that provided substantial municipal funding for business development. Despite her youth, Penny recognised this as her golden opportunity and seized it wholeheartedly. She immersed herself in every aspect of the business, mastering the nuances, managing accounts, handling advertising, and promoting growth, all while completing her university studies. Sleep became a luxury during those demanding months. Yet she persevered, earning her diploma while launching her business. After graduation, she could finally dedicate herself fully to her project. She had dreamed of studying dance as a child, but her family couldn't afford the expensive lessons and performance costumes. This experience inspired her to secure sponsors who provided her students with beautiful stage outfits in exchange for advertising. As an advocate for accessible education, she obtained subsidies, enabling children from low-income families to attend free of charge. Many of these students became stellar performers who enhanced the school's reputation and served as living testimonials. Penny's innovative ideas for the school's development constantly bore fruit. Seasoned business partners attributed her success to instinct, but the truth was simpler. She genuinely loved her work. When Penny recognised the need to expand, she opened several satellite locations throughout the city. As her modest dance studio evolved into something bigger, she needed trusted support. She appointed her childhood friend Veronica as director, fresh from her graduation from the management department. Veronica possessed the same qualities that had driven Penny's success: organisation, meticulousness, responsibility, sharp intelligence, and attention to detail. The similarities and long-standing friendship convinced Penny that Veronica, despite her youth, was ideal for the role of right hand. Most importantly, Penny knew she could trust her. Veronica did prove worthy of her trust, diving into the work immediately. She spent late nights at the office, asking questions, reviewing documents, and mastering operations. With more time to implement new ideas, Penny's business flourished. Within 2 years of opening her first school, she could afford a flat in an upscale neighbourhood and a new car straight from the showroom. She finally enjoyed life's pleasures that had been unreachable in her childhood: luxury resorts, designer clothing, restaurant meals. The latter became necessary as her busy schedule left little time for cooking. 10 years after graduation, plans emerged for a class reunion. Social media made it easier to locate former classmates. Penny looked forward to the gathering, proud of her accomplishments, which likely surpassed those of her peers. Some had once mocked Veronica for wearing hand-me-downs from her cousins. Now they would see her transformed. The reunion proved joyful and intimate, with genuine interest in reconnecting and reminiscing. The former classmates discovered that most of them had married, many with multiple children. Proud parents showed photos of their little ones. Penny felt a twinge of melancholy. She, too, wanted a family, but her business had consumed her early years, and now, as a successful entrepreneur, she worried about attracting fortune hunters. She had heard too many cautionary tales. Anyway, at the reunion she met him, Paul, the class comedian, a charismatic joker, Penny's first love, though he never knew it himself. Penny was a typical quiet girl at school. She studied well, spent all her time on lessons and extracurricular activities, and rarely joined class outings to the cinema or skating rink. She didn't belong to the class elite, but Paul was at its head. Everyone loved him for his sparkling sense of humour and adventurous spirit. It was always fun with him, though he barely passed his classes. He might have had the ability, but he preferred partying to studying. At school, Paul could charm even the teachers. Thanks to his natural charisma and ability to influence people, he graduated without trouble. High school student Penny watched him from afar. She never dreamed he would notice her. His romantic conquests were legendary. She was drawn to his easy confidence, self-assurance, and undeniably attractive appearance. He only spoke to her when he needed to copy homework. Penny never refused. Even this small interaction was better than nothing. At the reunion restaurant, he looked as charismatic and charming as ever. Age had made him even more attractive. The women brightened in his presence. Former classmates, even those with children or heavily pregnant, tried to catch his attention with questions and laughed too loudly at his jokes. After 10 years, some things hadn't changed. Yet Paul himself had grown more serious. Yes, he still joked cleverly and created a light atmosphere at the table, but now he skillfully deflected excessive attention from tipsy ladies without causing their offence. In school, he had never missed a chance to tease his classmates. This new mature Paul appealed to Penny even more. After 10 years, her feelings hadn't changed much. She still felt shy around him. She still wanted to be near him, to see his sly blue eyes, catch his smile, admire the dimples in his cheeks. And now, Paul finally noticed her. Penny often caught him gazing at her, mesmerised. She knew she looked much better than she had in school. Stylish clothes, skillful makeup, gym workouts and regular beauty treatments had worked wonders. Though she was used to compliments, none affected her like the sincere interest in Paul's eyes. He worked as a chief engineer at a local oil company, earning well enough to afford expensive watches and designer clothes. The charming former classmate wasn't married yet, nor planning to be. He had career plans that prevented him from starting a family at this time. After the restaurant, Paul invited Penny for a walk through the night city. They walked and talked for hours. His voice mesmerised her. Soon, Paul and Penny began dating. Within months, he had moved into her apartment. Then they married at the registry office. No boring wedding and crowds of guests. That was Paul's decision. Why organise a celebration for people neither of us knows well? Let's make it special just for us. The newlyweds chose a warm seaside holiday instead. It was romantic and unforgettable. Gentle waves, hot sun, excellent service. And there he was, her beautiful, beloved man, a fairy tale, a dream come true. Penny felt happy. She tried to ignore the fact that Paul had lost his high position at the company a week ago. A honeymoon wasn't the time for sad thoughts. Management had changed, and naturally the director had installed his own people in key positions. Penny understood. She would have done the same, but it didn't matter. Paul was a skilled specialist. He wouldn't be jobless for long. He wasn't some fortune hunter, the type successful Penny had always feared. Paul was different, educated, successful, reliable. Back home, Penny threw herself into her work with renewed energy. As usual, she overflowed with interesting ideas. Paul started job hunting, but unsuccessfully. Nothing suitable appeared. Penny didn't pressure her beloved. They had enough money. She knew how important professional fulfillment was for a man. She supported her husband completely. Her subordinates and partners knew she had married, and naturally they were curious about her choice. "What does he do?" asked Larry, one of the investors. They had known each other for years and were meeting about regional educational development. "He's an engineer, but temporarily unemployed. By the way, would your company have any suitable positions? He has excellent experience and references." "No vacancies at present, but if he's as qualified as you say, he won't stay unemployed long." "That's what I thought, but it's proving difficult for him to find work. It's been 6 months." "6 months?" Larry's eyebrows shot up. "6 months living off you?" he interrupted sharply. Penny had no response. That's how it is. For 6 months, she has been the sole breadwinner of their young family. Penny felt neither sorry nor burdened. Everyone goes through hard times. Spouses should support each other. And yet, something didn't feel right. Penny regretted being too open with Larry. "Don't you think he's using you?" Larry had the right to ask such a question. He and Penny had been not just business partners, but almost friends for years. About 3 years ago, Larry confessed that he liked Penny very much, not as a partner, not even as a friend, but as a woman. He suggested they try to start a relationship. Penny immediately refused. Though this could have harmed their cooperation, Larry didn't stir any romantic feelings in her. He was too pragmatic, calculating and serious, just like herself. She was attracted to quite different men, cheerful, light-hearted, charming men like Paul. Larry then proposed they forget about his words and continue communicating as if nothing had happened. Penny agreed with pleasure. Surprisingly, no awkwardness or tension lingered between them afterward. "Larry, what are you saying? He's not using me. When we started dating, Paul was on a roll. Should I dump him now that he's in trouble? At the first sign of difficulty?" However, Penny understood that something had to be done urgently. Even if he couldn't get as prestigious a position as before, he needed to earn something, to do anything. It was becoming embarrassing in front of acquaintances. In their eyes, Paul truly looked like a kept man. So Penny began to offer her husband options. "Maybe you could come work at my school." "As whom?" Paul snorted. "A ballet master or something?" "Why a ballet master?" His spouse smiled. "A safety engineer, part-time." "Me? A former chief engineer of an oil company?" The man was insulted. "Don't talk nonsense. I'm already in a career slump, and you're only worsening it." "What's wrong with it? Work part-time and look for a position you like. You'll have plenty of time." "Have you thought about my feelings? What will my ex-colleagues say? The mistress has arranged a cosy position for her useless husband. I'll feel like a dependent there. How can I respect myself after that?" Penny considered this. There was some truth in her spouse's words, yet something had to be done about their situation. "Maybe you could try opening your own business. I'll provide start-up money. Think of an idea and we'll discuss business plans." "So you want to become my investor?" Paul clarified. He looked interested. "Well, yes. I have some spare savings, if you—" "I've got an idea." Her husband interrupted her with a happy smile. "I've been wanting to open a cafe for a long time. I'll start working on a business plan right away." "That's wonderful," Penny rejoiced. She liked seeing her husband so enthusiastic. As promised, Penny gave Paul money for development. Now he was rarely home, spending all his time at the cafe. He told Penny everything was going great, and he was sincerely grateful to Penny for her support. Paul had money now, and he bought a car on credit and began giving his wife gifts, both for occasions and spontaneously. Penny couldn't help but be pleased with her husband. She was proud to tell others that Paul was a businessman. But the idyll ended quickly. Not even 6 months had passed when Paul came home in a gloomy mood. "That's it," he said. "I've gone bust. Competitors have finished me off, framed me, cited various authorities on me. They're shutting me down, and now I have a pile of debts." "How?" Penny gasped. "Why didn't you come to me for help? This disaster didn't happen overnight. Maybe it could have been prevented." "What does it matter now?" Paul waved his hand. "I wanted to handle it myself like a man. You already gave me the money to open the business. Should I hide behind your skirt for every problem? I thought I could manage it myself. I couldn't." So Paul stayed home again. He resumed his job search, which yielded no results. Penny decided to investigate what had happened to her husband's business, without his knowledge. It turned out Paul had barely invested in its development, even violating sanitary regulations. This business was doomed from the start. Strange. Penny was perplexed. She had given Paul enough money to open a proper business. Where had he put it? Had he spent it so carelessly? That explained the gifts and his expensive purchases. Penny knew some people aren't suited for entrepreneurship. It seemed her husband was one of them. It was disappointing but bearable. Worse were the debts that now burdened Paul. Every month, Penny had to give him a substantial sum to partially repay them. Paul looked depressed. Penny felt sorry for him. She couldn't imagine how she would feel in his position. He tried to be helpful, cleaning the house and cooking delicious dinners. Penny loved coming home to such comfort, but she understood this couldn't continue indefinitely. It's vital for a man to feel like a provider, a master, the head of the family. Her spouse's depressed state proved that the role of cook and cleaner clearly didn't suit him. Another year passed. During this time, Paul hadn't found work. People in Penny's circle openly told her she had married a kept man. Larry was especially harsh. "What kind of husband is this? Not a husband, but a domestic servant," he resented. "I can't imagine it. A man who doesn't earn. I've been working since I was 15, and look at him." "He's going through a difficult period," Penny defended her spouse. "Nobody's immune." "This period has gone on too long. Do you really need such a relationship? Can't you see? He's latched onto you, lives off your provision, drives a nice car. Really, there is no need to work to him." "Larry, stop it," the woman snapped, but she couldn't find any arguments in Paul's favour. Then everything suddenly changed. Paul began leaving the house for long periods. He had money again. Her husband's mood had clearly improved. He was smiling again. "Honey, I didn't want to tell you ahead of time. I've started doing phone consultations for money. I have extensive experience. I'm a high-end specialist, so my advice isn't cheap." "That's wonderful," Penny rejoiced. "You've finally found work that suits you." "This is just the beginning. Maybe later I'll open my own agency. I have big plans." "No, not that," the woman exclaimed hastily. She still remembered her husband's cafe experience. The monthly debt payments remained fresh in her mind. "You don't think I can do it?" Paul was clearly offended. "Do you think you're the only capable business person?" No, not at all." Penny was flustered. "It's just that business isn't for everyone. You've got a lot to learn." "I'll figure it out." Paul snapped and left for the bedroom. Penny regretted not holding her tongue. She seemed to have seriously hurt her husband's feelings. One day, Penny arrived at her office at an unusual hour. She was supposed to attend a meeting at the mayor's office, but it had been cancelled. She was surprised to see Paul's car at the gate. Has something happened? She wondered, because Paul seldom showed up here. Penny parked, entered the lobby, nodded to the guard and climbed the stairs. On the top landing, she heard voices. Her husband and Veronica talking. "This is the last time I'm giving you money from the safe," her friend announced. "How much more can you take? It's going to become noticeable soon. I can't keep covering for you forever." "Veronica, please," coaxed her husband. "It's for a good cause, you know. Just don't tell Penny anything yet. I don't want her to worry unnecessarily." "Of course I won't either. She won't thank me for such a thing." Veronica paused. "She's strict, that's true. She thinks highly of herself." Penny was shocked and needed time to process what she'd heard and decide how to handle it. Thus, she slipped into the neighbouring accounting department, staying unnoticed, and spent the rest of the day pondering what she'd learned. Paul was taking money from the safe. Not for the first time, judging by the conversation. Veronica was giving it to him and apparently covering the excess spending in the documents. If the amounts weren't too large, that would be easy enough to do. But why? Paul said he needed the money for some good cause. Why could he tell Veronica but not me, his wife? Why would Veronica, usually as dependable as a rock, help Paul behind her back? What was this supposedly good purpose? After wrestling with these questions all day, Penny decided she'd had enough. She entered the director's office. Veronica looked up tiredly. "We need to talk, Veronica. I've always trusted you, you know that." "I know, so what? From your tone, it seems you don't trust me any more." "What's going on? Why are you regularly giving my husband money from the safe? Why haven't you told me about it?" Oh, you found out, Veronica said quietly. Yes, I've given him several sums, but he has serious circumstances. Like what? Another business venture? Not at all. It's more serious, Veronica exhaled. He asked me not to tell you, but since you know everything, I have to explain. Paul's mother is seriously ill, and he's sending money for her treatment. Without it, she won't survive. Penny sat stunned. She hadn't expected this. She'd only met her mother-in-law a couple of times. Paul himself rarely communicated with relatives. His mother had seemed healthy and pleasant to Penny, and now she learned her mother-in-law was seriously ill. So Penny struggled to control her emotions. He came to you with this trouble, not me. Penny tried to understand it's difficult for him. He's not earning money. He can't find his place. And then to beg you for his mother's treatment. Is it better to take it behind my back? Penny shook her head. Don't give him any more money without my knowledge. I'll talk to him today, and of course I'll transfer the necessary amount for his mother's treatment. At home, everything seemed normal at first. Paul had cleaned, cooked a delicious dinner, and was watching TV on the sofa, looking satisfied. Penny walked over and turned it off. We're spouses, the closest people to each other, she said, meeting his eyes. I want no secrets between us. I know about your mother's situation. I can't understand why you told Veronica but not me, your wife. I heard your conversation. And this phone counselling income you mentioned? Was that a lie too? I know it wasn't right, but I didn't want to worry you. You've been stressed lately, so I thought I'd handle it quietly. And I'm ashamed, Paul burst out. I'm a healthy man with no good job or income, dependent on my wife. I can't even help my own mother. Penny felt uncomfortable. She always struggled when Paul showed vulnerability. She even felt guilty about her success, an irrational, unpleasant feeling. It's okay, calm down. She gently touched his cheek and hugged him. He wrapped his arms around her waist. I made lasagna for dinner. Paul finally broke the silence. Want to try it? I'd love to, I'm starving. So, how's your mother doing? The treatment's working. It's expensive, but the doctors are optimistic. Should we visit her at the hospital? It's too early, it's not allowed yet. I feel terrible about not supporting her at such a moment. What do you mean? You're providing for her treatment. Money isn't everything, but it helps. By the way, there's still more to pay. And Paul named a substantial sum. I'll transfer it tomorrow, Penny promised. Time passed, but little changed. Penny remained devoted to her business. Paul continued his job search. But Penny no longer rushed him now. She understood that her husband needed to take care of his sick mother. She had a serious illness related to loss of immunity. No one except her son, wearing a protective suit, was allowed to visit her. That's what Paul said. He was holding up well. Penny couldn't imagine how she would cope if either of her parents were in that position. To be honest, Penny enjoyed coming home to a clean, cosy flat, filled with the aroma of delicious food. Paul excelled at housework. She realized that once she found employment here, she would miss these comforts. Her relationship with Veronica remained unchanged. Penny had forgiven her friend's moment of weakness, knowing how persuasive Paul could be. Yet her friend's behaviour had subtly shifted. Veronica no longer joined her for lunchtime chats. Their cinema and cafe outings ceased. She cited business and fatigue. Then one morning, Penny found herself unable to get out of bed. Her head spun, dark spots dancing before her eyes. Still, she forced herself up. Despite 8 hours of sleep, she felt exhausted and broken, a state that had persisted for some time. You look terribly haggard, Larry remarked that day, during an unexpected office visit. Are you all right? Do you need help? No, just exhausted. I've been dealing with school problems lately, plus developing a new project. I see you're exhausted, and Paul's lying on the sofa, taking care of himself. Larry, please don't start. I'm sick of it. I'm worried about you, the man admitted. I don't like your pallor. When was your last vacation?" "I can barely remember." "Go to the sanatorium at the seacoast. My sister recently had a wonderful time in one of them with her children. There's rest, the sea, and excellent doctors who can examine you. Maybe you're lacking vitamins. Take at least a week for yourself, or you'll burn out completely." "You know, maybe you're right." "I'm definitely right," Larry smiled. "Here's their card. Call them today, now." And Penny did travel to the sanatorium. Larry had been right. The exhausted woman enjoyed the deserted beaches, swam in the pool, and had massages. Her vitality returned, the weakness faded, and the dizziness subsided. Her mirror reflection transformed from pale skin and dark circles to a radiant, cheerful, fresh face. One day by the pool, she noticed two women. The older one bore a striking resemblance to her mother-in-law. Penny looked closer, uncertain because they'd only met Paul's mother twice, and surely she couldn't be here. According to her husband, his mother was still seriously ill in hospital, yet her mother-in-law, for it was indeed her, recognised Penny too. "Hello, dear," the lady smiled, looking anything but sickly. "Is Paul here with you?" "No, he stayed home. I'm alone." "I see. My son told me he's very busy with his own business. With you, he's really stepped up, become clever. I'm glad. I thought nothing would ever change him." "Busy with his business?" Penny grew increasingly puzzled. "And by the way, how's your health?" "I'm fine. I'm in my 60s, of course, but I can't complain." "So you haven't been hospitalised for 6 months? Didn't need expensive treatment?" "I was in hospital, but not for 6 months. I had a circumferential lift. It was expensive, true. My husband paid for it, a 20th wedding anniversary gift. But why these strange questions about my health?" Penny told this pleasant, healthy woman everything. About Paul losing his job, his failed job searches, and the story about money for his mother's treatment. As she spoke, her mother-in-law's expression darkened. "So, he's at it again. Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's in his genes. I can't help it. I feel sorry for you, girl. Leave him before it's too late. At least you don't have children. I'll explain everything, but the story is long and unpleasant." Paul was born from a brief affair between his mother and a visiting university professor. He claimed to be captivated by the young department member's beauty, saying he'd never seen anyone like her. He spoke of kindred spirits and destiny's perfect match. This charming, charismatic man presented himself as unmarried. Paul's mother drove headlong into the passionate relationship, believing his promises of a serious future. But things unfolded differently. She, already imagining their wedding, learned that he had a wife and 3 children in his hometown, with no intention of changing his life. "What's the problem, babe?" he asked shamelessly. "We had fun. You enjoyed it. Don't deny it. If you'd known about my family from the start, none of this would have happened. Who would that have helped?" So he left, and the heartbroken woman soon discovered her pregnancy. When the time came, she delivered a healthy, strong boy. Paul grew into a handsome, charming child with powerful charisma. In school, especially high school, young women went to extraordinary lengths to win Paul's heart. Helen often found herself consoling or calming his passionate admirers. Paul had inherited his father's looks and charm. Unfortunately, the habit of lying was inherited from his careless parent too. He would invent the most incredible facts about his life on the fly, presenting them so convincingly that people, strangely enough, believed him. Paul had an innate power of persuasion. Helen was deeply troubled by this. She saw clearly that her child was a master manipulator. He tried to manipulate her too, but unsuccessfully. When Paul was about 13, his mother married a good, wealthy man who owned a small dairy. Unlike Paul's father, this man was always honest with his wife and supported her in everything. Soon, the family welcomed a daughter. Paul grew jealous and invented such heart-wrenching stories that the guardianship authorities nearly sent him to an orphanage. After this incident, the teenager realized he had gone too far and became more careful. Over time, he perfected his art of lying and manipulation. These skills helped him graduate from university, but he had no desire to work. He tried employment briefly but disliked it. Instead, Paul chose to live at others' expense, begging money from his stepfather, deceiving friends and relatives. Eventually, he learned to live off wealthy women who were willing to support a handsome young man with a terrific sense of humour, blue eyes and charming dimples. His mother was devastated that her son had become such an unworthy person. She blamed herself for failing to raise him properly. Paul lived independently, rarely appearing at home or maintaining family ties. Then one day he announced his engagement to Penny. Helen was overjoyed, believing he would finally settle down, especially since she took an immediate liking to Penny, an organised, determined young woman who had already achieved much despite her youth. Time passed. From what Helen could tell, Paul's married life seemed fine, though he claimed his wife preferred limited contact with his relatives. Helen accepted this without offence. The important thing was that her son appeared happy and in good hands. When Paul bragged about starting his own business, the woman was initially sceptical. But seeing him with expensive cars, watches, and the latest phones, she believed he had finally straightened out his life. How else could he afford such luxury? And now this chance meeting with her daughter-in-law at the sanatorium happened. I can't believe it, Penny muttered, tears streaming down her face unnoticed. Her world had shattered overnight. The man she had loved since high school, her husband, was nothing but a pathological liar and a con-man. She had constantly excused him, pitied him, supported him, while he happily exploited her kindness and her money. It was hard for me, too, to admit what kind of person my son is, her mother-in-law sighed. Even harder than it is for you. Get away from him before it's too late. He'll try to convince you otherwise. He'll certainly think of something, but don't listen to him. He isn't trustworthy. I almost envy you. You can cut him out of your life. I can't. He's still my son. Thank you for being honest. Penny smiled weakly. I need to go to my room now and think. Of course. Her mother-in-law's gaze held a mixture of warmth, pity and guilt. Once in her room, Penny collapsed onto the bed and let her emotions flow. She had never cried so hard. The pillow grew so wet with tears, she had to dry it with a hairdryer. From childhood, Paul recognised his main advantages, the ability to charm people and attract attention. Early on, he learned to manipulate others, first his caretakers, then teachers and classmates. The boy knew that if he wanted something from anyone, he would get it effortlessly. It didn't matter what he desired, an extra serving on a meal, rare collectible items, concert tickets, homework help, or the best role in school plays. At first, Paul believed everyone possessed such abilities. To his surprise and delight, he discovered his talents were unique. This realization greatly boosted his self-esteem. His mother remained the only person immune to his influence. Sometimes the boy felt she merely tolerated him rather than loved him. Later he understood. She must have seen his father's traits in him, the man who had broken her heart. Though this hurt Paul, especially in childhood, he eventually stopped caring about his mother's attitude. He received plenty of love and attention from others. He had other relatives too, grandmother, grandfather, and aunt. They adored their handsome, clever boy and indulged him despite his mother's protests. "You'll spoil him," she would argue. "You can't spoil with love," his grandmother would counter. "The boy has no father. He needs extra attention," his grandfather would echo her. His aunt would simply smile affectionately and slip her favourite nephew money for expenses. As Paul grew older, he discovered his talent for entertaining and organising people. Classmates often remarked how fun and easy it was to be around him. He was always the centre of attention. Both athletes and honours students befriended him. School beauties pursued him relentlessly. Of course, Paul took advantage of his position. Initially, his mother raised him alone. Expensive gaming consoles and seaside vacations were unthinkable luxuries. Then his stepfather, the local dairy owner, entered their lives. Everything changed. They moved into a spacious cottage filled with modern amenities. They flew to seaside resorts annually, staying in luxury hotels and shopping at high-end boutiques. Paul laughed that his stepfather was his golden ticket and used all his charm to win his trust. As usual, he succeeded. The man boasted to everyone about his wonderful stepson. He even planned to pass the business to Paul, who feigned interest in his business, though he neither understood nor cared about it. His stepfather's eyes would light up whenever Paul asked questions about the dairy. Paul dreamed of becoming like him, wealthy, respected, influential, someone others would bow to. But that required effort and work, precisely what Paul despised. However, he attended university at his parents' insistence and even graduated with an engineering degree. He passed it using his usual tactics: charm, lies, and flattery. But the young man never intended to work in his field. When his parents refused to support their adult son financially, thinking it would motivate him, they didn't know he'd been dating Heather. They'd met at a club, a young student and a wealthy, bored, middle-aged widow who had inherited her late husband's fortune. They became lovers. Heather was drawn to his youth and vitality. He was interested solely in her money. And the woman proved generous. She showered him with expensive gifts, watches, clothes, phones. She even rented him an apartment, though she didn't offer to live together, having teenage children who would disapprove. This arrangement delighted Paul. He preferred their occasional romantic encounters. It was more entertaining that way. He told his friends and family he'd landed a position as chief engineer at a local oil company. Helen was immediately sceptical. His stepfather initially believed him, but investigated through his connections and confirmed his wife's suspicions. "I don't know your income source, but you're unemployed," he confronted Paul. "Stay away from my family. You're dangerous, a pathological liar, a parasite living off dishonestly obtained money." "Message received," Paul smirked. "But I don't care." Now, estranged from his family, Paul felt neither remorse nor anxiety. He knew he'd survive. In the worst case, he could apologize to his mother, who would reluctantly accept and support him. She was easy to manipulate through guilt, having birthed a child of an unknown man, never truly loving him, and now losing him to family conflict. Paul understood perfectly that this situation pained his mother. Fine, she'd be his backup plan, though he hoped to avoid needing it. His relationship with Heather ended suddenly. She'd found another handsome man. She left him a generous parting gift, but Paul knew it wouldn't last long, given his expensive lifestyle. Would he finally need to work? This drastic measure proved unnecessary when Cheryl soon replaced Heather. She was an elegant, attractive woman just past 40. Paul even developed unexpected feelings for her. He admired nearly everything about Cheryl: her perfect figure, soft skin, silky hair, easygoing nature, and sense of humour. Her only flaw was her husband, a prominent local businessman. Paul knew discovery of their affair would have serious consequences, which only made their meetings more thrilling. Cheryl seemed to enjoy the secrecy too. Their relationship felt like a game or movie plot. Like Heather, she showed great generosity, giving even more lavish gifts: a car, a studio apartment, luxury resort vacations. But Cheryl too vanished from his life similarly to Heather, moving abroad with her husband. Megan succeeded her. Less wealthy, merely chief accountant at a major local company, lacking her predecessor's sophistication. But this lonely middle-aged woman was also doing anything for a young lover, though Paul quickly tired of her company. Megan suffocated him with her care. They lived together, vacationed together, spent every moment together. She cooked him delicious meals, washed and ironed his shirts, called him silly pet names, and gazed at him with adoring yet condescending eyes. It became unbearable. One day, Paul realised it was time to find a way out. Megan had already introduced him to all her relatives, and her hints about marriage had evolved into explicit requests, almost demands. And then he was invited to a school reunion. Paul prepared meticulously, determined to impress his former classmates. He wore one of the designer suits Cheryl had given him, complemented by an expensive watch, and his appearance had the intended effect. He reclaimed his position as the life of the party and everyone's favourite, just as in school. This feeling delighted him. As for Penny, she caught his attention immediately. She looked radiant with her glowing skin, lustrous hair, and elegant figure. She dressed in stylish subtlety. Paul, knowledgeable about designer clothing, recognised the premium quality of her attire. The absence of a ring indicated she wasn't married. How had she acquired such luxury? She was clearly wealthy now. Through casual conversation, he learned the truth. The former nerd had built the most prestigious dance school in the area. A plan formed instantly in his head. Here was his chance to escape the clingy, ageing Megan. Penny was young, attractive, and far wealthier. Perhaps she could help advance his career. Paul had grown weary of depending on women, but he still wasn't ready for serious work. Seriously. Maybe Penny could offer him a position in her business. Make him a director, perhaps. Thus, Paul unleashed his charm on the unsuspecting Penny. It proved effortless. She doted on Paul, and like his previous partners, was generous with gifts. She sympathised with his fake dismissal from his position as chief engineer at the oil company. He wasn't actually job hunting. His plan to become dance school director had failed. The position wasn't as straightforward as he'd imagined. Veronica often worked late preparing reports. He wanted no part of such responsibilities. Besides, Penny appreciated her friend's work, constantly praising her competence. She wouldn't replace such an expert with someone who knew nothing about the business. For a while, things proceeded smoothly. Penny worked diligently while Paul pretended to job hunt, expressing disappointment with each supposedly rejected opportunity. Then his wife grew more insistent. Moreover, her attitude started to infuriate him. She clearly considered him as servant, the failure, the layabout, while she was the successful businesswoman, the provider, the intelligent and wealthy one. She constantly emphasised her authority and his dependence. Previously, she'd transferred money to his card several times monthly. Now he had to remind her and invent reasons. It felt degrading. But as always, he found a solution through another woman. Paul had noticed how Veronica looked at him. She'd had a crush on him in school, even confessing it once. Back then, Paul hadn't taken her seriously, just a girl from a poor family with mediocre looks. Why would he need such a girl when there were plenty of bright beauties around? But now everything had changed. Veronica had become the director who handled most of the firm's financial matters. She could help him. Paul began his manipulation carefully, visiting the office and paying attention to Veronica. He would offer compliments, crack jokes, and cast languid looks her way. Like an experienced manipulator, he saw his tactics having the desired effect. Veronica opened up to him more and more. She grew accustomed to speaking with her friend's husband. Paul patiently listened to Veronica's stories about her friends and relatives. Though it tested his patience, he endured her sharing of worries and concerns, managing to insert well-timed responses. Then one day he received confirmation that it was time to act. "I never thought you were such a sensitive and deep person," Veronica said, looking straight into Paul's eyes. "You acted so differently at school." "We were all fools at school," Paul countered. "I feel like you're my soulmate," the woman confessed. "I have the same feeling." Paul moved closer to Veronica, gazing into her eyes. She swayed slightly toward him. He seized the moment and kissed her. What are we doing?" Veronica whispered, lowering her eyes. "It's not right. Penny, if she finds out, she's my friend and boss, by the way." She won't find out anything. There's no need to worry her, Paul said firmly. She's got enough problems as it is, but I can't help myself. Neither can I, Veronica admitted. They became lovers. They met mostly at Veronica's flat. Paul assessed the situation with a practised eye. Clearly, Penny didn't skimp on salaries and bonuses for her right hand. The dance school director lived comfortably, but unlike with his previous conquests, Paul had no intention of living off Veronica. He had more ambitious plans for her. With her help, he planned to take over Penny's business. Though that would take time, he needed money immediately, so Paul invented a story about his sick mother. What a pity, Veronica said, genuinely horrified as she listened to Paul's tear-jerking tale. I'm so sorry for your mother and you, but why don't you ask Penny for money? I know her, she won't refuse. You see, I'm a man, but I'm in a difficult position right now. I was sacked, new management and all that. It's humiliating enough living off my wife. She nags me about every penny, calls me names, and now I need this much money. If you refuse, I'll have to go to her. A mother's life matters more than pride, but... Oh dear. I'll help, Veronica exclaimed eagerly. Paul had, as usual, hit his mark perfectly. A woman's love, seasoned with pity and the desire to care for a loved one. These ingredients created the perfect combination. From then on, Paul began systematically destroying the friendship between the women. His method was simple, casually mentioning offensive remarks his wife had supposedly made about him or Veronica, sharing stories about Penny's contempt for those less fortunate. Skillfully and methodically, he crafted the image of a cold, heartless woman who stepped on others to reach her goals. Sure, she knew how to pretend and please people, but he, her husband, saw her true nature. All this served his long-term plan. If everything worked out, he'd never need to manipulate women for money again. Veronica kept giving him the money for his mother's supposed treatment. Later, Paul planned to tap this cash flow again, but Penny discovered it. She overheard a conversation between him and Veronica. Of course, she seemed to believe him and even provided money for treatment. But a new problem arose. She wanted to visit her mother-in-law. He couldn't keep making excuses about no visitors being allowed anymore. Penny had already started researching the diagnosis and seeking specialists. While Paul pondered his next move, an unexpected solution appeared. Penny decided to rest at a sanatorium, following a colleague's suggestion. This worked perfectly. He had already manipulated Veronica into the right mindset, and she had agreed to prepare documents transferring Penny's business to him. He used all his natural abilities and experience to convince her. We'll finally be together. We'll have everything we need to be happy. Penny can stay on as director, with the same salary. I want to be with you. I'm tired of hiding, he persuaded Veronica. Wrestling with her conscience, Veronica slipped the documents in with a stack of routine papers for the unsuspecting Penny to sign. Penny trusted her friend completely. Besides, she felt terrible lately, and thoughts of her upcoming trip occupied her mind. Paul rejoiced. He now owned the entire dance school network. He possessed both a profitable business and Veronica's heart. She knew how to manage it all. What more could he want? Penny would stay at the sanatorium for nearly a month. He had time to establish his own system. To prevent anyone from informing his wife about the changes, he had planned ahead. Before her trip, he hid her phone. He bought her a new one with a different SIM card. Of course, she could have restored her old number, but helpful Paul, who volunteered to solve the problem, conveniently forgot about that option. So his wife departed with a new number, known only to those closest to her, himself and Veronica, and they certainly wouldn't tell her anything. Now in charge, Paul got to work. First, he replaced all management positions. He didn't want his wife's people in his company. Veronica objected, saying new specialists wouldn't immediately understand all the nuances. They shouldn't move too hastily. But Paul already felt like the owner and was confident he knew best. After all, he had Veronica, the permanent director, who understood everything about the business. Then Paul raised the price of season tickets and cancelled benefits. He started renovations, changed the name of the school, and made numerous decisions that made Veronica's head spin. She had to deal with the consequences of his management. Like at the beginning of her career, she now stayed late at the office, but unlike then, when there were prospects for growth and development, now the director realised a disaster was approaching. Veronica dreaded their upcoming meeting with Penny, but Paul wasn't worried at all. He eagerly awaited his wife's arrival. Soon a spectacular scene would unfold. His triumph, her defeat. The expression of superiority and smugness would finally vanish from his wife's face. She had gained strength, processed what she had learned from her mother-in-law, and decided to divorce her husband immediately upon return. Penny opened the door with her key and entered the living room. A sleepy Paul emerged from the bedroom. The usual pattern. It was almost noon and he was still in bed. "Welcome back," her husband smiled. "How was your flight?" "Fine," Penny replied coldly. Now her husband disgusted her. How could she ever have loved him? Perceptive, Paul immediately noticed something was wrong. "Did something happen?" "Yes, something happened. We need to have a serious talk." "What a coincidence." His smile widened. "I have something to discuss too." "Did you find a job?" Penny couldn't resist the sarcasm. "Should I congratulate you?" "I love your sense of humour, but congratulations to you." Paul grinned and revealed everything. His relationship with Veronica, their scheming, how he'd become the sole owner of the business, and his first actions in charge. Penny listened and didn't want to believe it, but after her conversation with her mother-in-law, she knew Paul was capable of such things. "Get out," she said tiredly. "I don't want to see you. You didn't take my apartment, did you?" "What would I want with your little shack? I've already got my eye on a 2-story flat downtown. I just wanted to welcome you properly. Wanted to tell you myself. See your reaction." "Well, you've seen it. Pack your bags and go." "I'm already packed. Just a few things left." Paul left. Penny sat on the sofa, hugged her knees, and thought. Her dance school. Her brainchild. Her treasure. Paul had stolen it all from her. He'd taken everything and would destroy it. No doubt about that. He already had. And Veronica? Fine. Paul seemed unhinged, but how could she do this? He couldn't have managed it without her. Had she fallen for his charm? What now? What could she do? Let it go? No, absolutely not. Penny wanted Paul to suffer, to feel everything she felt now, but multiplied. She began to strategize. What did Paul love most in the world? Money, of course, and the luxurious lifestyle it provided. She would ensure her soon-to-be ex-husband, she'd file the papers today, would end up penniless, and preferably in debt. Larry had been secretly in love with Penny since their first meeting at City Hall. The young, determined woman had impressed him with her enthusiasm, energy, and organisational skills. Still in university, she'd already opened a dance school. The young entrepreneur's unconventional yet practical decisions impressed him. He could learn much from her. Though inexperienced in business initially, she needed support. Larry became one of her investors, less for profit than for the chance to meet her, speak with her, see her beautiful brown eyes. The more he knew her, the more he admired her. No trace of flirtation, no hint of arrogance, just constructive dialogue. A sharp mind paired with excellent humour. They gradually grew closer, becoming good friends over years of collaboration. But Larry wanted more. One day he confessed his feelings to Penny, but she didn't reciprocate. Though deeply hurt, he respected her decision. He suggested they forget his confession and continue as before, not wanting any awkwardness between them. Friends would remain friends. Penny seemed to like this idea. She agreed with pleasure, and neither mentioned that conversation again. Later, Larry couldn't comprehend her choice. Yes, Paul had charisma, but how could Penny not see she'd married a physical fortune hunter? She was brilliant, perceptive, sensitive and strong. She wouldn't have survived in business otherwise. Larry had tried discussing her husband with her several times, but she'd always reacted defensively, so he'd dropped the subject. Then something incredible happened. Penny vanished, reportedly to a seaside resort, but first transferred the business to her husband, who immediately began destroying the enterprise she'd devoted her life to. Larry sensed something was wrong and anxiously awaited her return. He'd considered filing a missing person report if she didn't appear within weeks. It all seemed too suspicious. Penny gone, her phone off, while Paul and Veronica did what they pleased with her life's work. Then Penny called. "Where did you disappear to?" Larry felt immense relief. He'd been worried sick about her. "I was at a sanatorium. Are you aware of what's happening?" "Yes," Penny replied grimly. "How did you let this happen? Why give him the business?" "Larry, the people I trusted have betrayed me. You were right about Paul. He's a scoundrel. I really need your help, now." "Anything," Larry promised. "I could start by punching him." "No need for that, though I wanted to myself at first. I need a different kind of support, and quickly, before that fool entirely ruins everything. I have a plan." Larry listened to Penny's ideas and smiled. "He'd better not cross your path." "He'd better not," the woman agreed. Meanwhile, Paul realized things weren't going as planned. He had expected huge profits after implementing his changes. He had raised prices and cut wages. But reality proved different. Quality teachers were quitting. The staff was dissatisfied with the new management strategy. No one wanted to work for meagre pay, especially since there were plenty of opportunities for skilled choreographers elsewhere. Soon, both teachers and students began leaving, with few newcomers taking their place. The high price of season tickets scared potential clients away. They had to deplete their reserves to cover rent and utilities, even taking out a high-interest loan. When they applied for another loan, they were rejected. Meanwhile, Veronica kept stirring up trouble. She pestered them daily with reports. Paul didn't bother looking into them. He knew nothing good would come of it. Then one day, an investor named Larry appeared in his office. He introduced himself as someone interested in meeting the school's new owner and inquired about the business. Paul openly shared their financial difficulties. After some consideration, the investor made an irresistible offer. Paul would take out another substantial loan and invest it in Larry's company. "In just a month, you'll be making solid profits. Then I'll invest in you again." That's precisely how Penny and I worked together, hand in hand, though doing business with a man is even more pleasant. Paul followed the visitor's advice without hesitation, despite Veronica's warnings about Larry's connection to Penny. "You can't trust him completely," she insisted. "He's Penny's man." "Oh, be quiet, I've had enough," he snapped. "Who's the boss here, me or you? He's a decent guy, everything will be fine." But Paul couldn't have been more wrong. A month passed, and not only did the promised profits fail to materialize, but everything fell apart. Larry's company, where Paul had invested substantial borrowed funds, went bankrupt, unexpected. Paul found himself drowning in debt, most of which fell on his own shoulders. Then came unexpected inspections from tax and labour authorities. They uncovered numerous violations, with responsibility falling directly on him as manager. Paul was devastated. This was a complete disaster. He'd thought taking over an established business would make him rich. Instead, he had acquired a mountain of problems. Bailiffs harassed him, and he could barely afford food. Thankfully, he still had luxuries from his former life. He had to sell everything: designer suits, expensive watches, his apartment, his car. Parting with his fancy car proved especially difficult. This aesthete and lover of luxury now lived in a tiny, long-ago renovated apartment in a remote district, riding the bus everywhere. With almost no money left, he had to job hunt. Despite his experience, finding even a low-paying position proved challenging, with his sparse employment history. As he'd done before, Paul tried finding a wealthy woman to support him. Veronica was no longer an option. Buried in her own debts, she'd sold her upscale apartment and car, moving back in with her mother. People said she was depressed, but Paul didn't care. He'd never learned to feel compassion or form real attachments. Yet no woman appeared willing to take in this supposedly handsome, charismatic man. Paul wasn't the catch he once was. His good looks and natural charm had worked their magic. Now, his carefully cultivated image held little appeal to potential romantic interests. Then Larry reappeared, elegant, successful, wealthy as ever. He claimed these things happen. Sometimes companies fail. Feeling guilty, he offered to buy Paul's failing business. The price was insulting, but better than nothing, Paul reasoned. It would cover some designer clothes, spa treatments, and entry to an exclusive nightclub. Perhaps luck would smile on him again. Maybe he'd meet a wealthy woman. This time he'd be smarter, more careful. When the time came to sign the papers, Paul went to the buyer's office. Imagine his shock when he found his ex-wife there with Larry. Penny looked stunning, lounging confidently in an armchair with a gentle smile. The truth hit Paul like a thunderbolt. He'd been played. Digging a pit for others, you can easily fall in yourself. Penny smirked, extending the contract to her ex-husband. Sign here and return what's rightfully mine. You have no idea how long it'll take to repair the damage you've done. In just a couple of months, you nearly destroyed my life's work. You'll manage, Larry said confidently, speaking only to Penny, entirely ignoring Paul. I won't sign, Paul retreated, hoping to spite his smug ex-wife while he still could. Your choice, Larry finally acknowledged him, but your debts grow daily. They're all in your name. Soon you'll face more than fines. You'll go to prison. Heart aching, Paul signed. He knew he had no choice. Penny would resurrect the business. There was no doubt about that. As for him, well, perhaps his parents could help. His stepfather was doing well, after all. It was worth a try.